The machete stops mid-swing. Ahead, through a wall of vines, a shape breaks the jungle's rhythm, too straight, too deliberate to be stone-shaped by nature. Someone whispers that they've found something. No one yet knows they've just stepped into a city that vanished from human memory for over 1,000 years. Deep within Mexico's Calakmul Biosphere Reserve, a team of archaeologists had spent days cutting through 5 kilometers of unbroken vegetation. Then they hiked further still, on foot, once the ATVs could go no farther. Their guide was not a map. It was a set of laser scans, fired from an aircraft months earlier, revealing faint geometric outlines beneath the canopy. LiDAR had done what centuries of explorers could not. It had seen through the forest itself. The scans were part of a wider effort to update records around Chactun, a major center identified over a decade ago. What the data hinted at nearby was extraordinary. What waited on the ground was something else entirely. They named the place Minanbé, a Yucatec Maya phrase meaning there is no path. The name wasn't poetic flourish, it was literal. No logging road led there, no trail worn by generations of woodcutters, nothing to suggest another human had walked this ground in living memory. That absence of access became the team's first clue. Every other ruin they'd surveyed bore the scars of old trails and looters' pits. This one didn't. Lead archaeologist Ivan Spreitz, who has spent 3 decades mapping the region, called it the first untouched site his team had found in years. It raises an unsettling question. How many more cities are sitting untouched simply because nobody has ever needed a reason to find them? What they uncovered was staggering in scale. Spread across nearly 40 acres, the site held urban plazas, ringed by palaces and religious buildings. Terraces laced between them, threaded with water channels engineered centuries before modern irrigation existed. A pyramid temple rose more than 40 feet above the plaza floor. It was built in the distinctive Rio Bec style, favored across the region during the late Classic period between 600 and 900 AD. And crucially, there were no looters' trenches gouging through the rubble. For once, archaeologists were the first hands to touch these stones in a millennium. But the stones themselves were about to tell a far darker story. Among the ruins, researchers documented 14 stelae and altars, each carved with symbols meant to outlive empires. One altar depicted a ruler in a feathered headdress, adorned with bracelets and an ornately carved pectoral, a portrait of power frozen in limestone. Its hieroglyphs referenced a date in the late 7th century, among the oldest inscriptions found in the region. But this altar had been deliberately broken. Not eroded by time, not cracked by falling debris, broken and broken with intent. Someone, centuries ago, wanted that ruler's image destroyed. This leads us to a startling conclusion. The erasure of a king's likeness wasn't neglect. It was a message aimed at anyone who came after. Then came Stela 1. Carved into its surface is a chilling scene. A figure gripping a blade, poised over another figure, mid-decapitation. Beside it, a calendar glyph marks the date as roughly 849 AD. That places the carving squarely within the terminal Classic period, the final, unraveling decades before the Great Maya collapse swept through the lowlands. It makes one wonder if the intent was far more deliberate than we assumed. Was this propaganda? A warning carved in stone for rivals? Or was it a record of an actual execution, immortalized by a ruling class sensing its own grip loosening? The timing alone is enough to raise the hair on your neck. Researchers now suspect the story didn't end with a quiet abandonment. One theory holds that outside groups from the northern Yucatan Peninsula entered the site after it had already emptied out. The intentional damage to its monuments fits a familiar pattern seen at other abandoned Maya cities. Old symbols of power, smashed by whoever arrived after the rulers were gone. It may have been these later arrivals who broke the altar, erasing a dynasty already fading from memory. The decapitation carving on Stela 1 remains a separate mystery, carved decades earlier as the city's own power began to slip. Together, the two clues point toward the same turbulent era. Across the wider Maya world, pressures were building that scholars still debate today: drought, warfare, and political collapse. The evidence remains inconclusive, yet it suggests Minanbé's final years were anything but peaceful. What's most haunting isn't the violence etched into the stone, it's the silence that followed it. Whoever ruled here, whoever carved that final warning into an altar face, vanished completely. End quote. Their city needed a name, meaning no path, just to describe how thoroughly the jungle swallowed them. For over 1,000 years, the trees kept watch over palaces no one remembered building. Somewhere beneath that same canopy, more inscriptions likely wait, unread, holding names and dates no living person has spoken since the city fell silent. So the question isn't just what happened at Minanbé, it's how many other cities like it are still out there, sitting in silence, waiting to be noticed. If you could ask the ruler on that broken altar one single question, what would it be?